Hey everybody, welcome back to filling out our MYP Unit Planners. Part 1, Inquiry. Today we're going to focus on our Summative Assessment section of our Unit Planner. So let's get started. We've got lots to do today. So in our Canvas course, we're still in Unit Planning Part 1, Inquiry. And this time we're going to scroll all the way down to our Summative Assessment. So we're going to choose a performance task based on what we've given in the past. We're going to turn it into a graphs task. We're going to choose a criterion. We're going to match the parts. We're going to differentiate our task and then create a task-specific rubric. So more info on that in a different video. Okay, so what you need for this part, we want to have our assessment criterion. Open that in a new tab. We want to have our unit planner, our summative assessment guide, and we want to have our graphs task template ready to rock and roll. And then we also want to have a copy of our assessment. Okay, so this is an old school kind of fill in the blank case study question that we used to use for biology. And so I'm going to show you guys how to take a typical exam and turn it into something you can use for the IB. Okay, and then what we also want to have along with our resources is we want to have our unit planner ready to rock and roll. I've been using one in sciences, biology, and my practice unit planner. All right, so total, we've already done our headers. We've already done our content, our concepts and context. We've done our statement of inquiry. We've done our inquiry questions, and now we're moving on to our summative assessment. So it's kind of weird here with the block, but that's okay. So we're going to pick our criterion. We're going to pick our graphs task. We're going to differentiate, and then we're going to show how our assessment connects to the statement of inquiry. All right, so our old assessment was based on this case study that was done by this guy, Bernard Kettlewell, and the kids have to look at some data. They've got to look at the experiment. They've got to answer some short answer questions. They've got to do a pedigree and a Punnett square, and they've got to show that they understand DNA transcription and translation. Okay, so this is a very typical kind of short answer skills exam from biology. So what I did was I turned that into a graphs task. So for a little more information about what graphs tasks are, okay, we've got some different assessment strategies, assessment tasks, FAQs, and then the graphs task framework. So the G is for goal. What's the purpose or the challenge or the obstacle? What role are the kids going to take? Who's going to be their audience? What's the situation? What are the kids going to make? And then what standards are they going to hit? Okay, so I've also got in this resource a bunch of sentence stems. You do not have to use all of these sentence stems. You can pick one, maybe two, for each section. Okay, so I did that, and so now I have my graphs test. So my goal is to use data to propose a hypothesis as to what occurred to produce dark moths, light moths, and albino moths in the United Kingdom. So my kids are going to be graduate students working with this guy, Bernard Kettlewell, and our audience is a group of young voters who want to know the effects of pollution on animals. The situation is that since the Industrial Revolution, moths have magically changed color from light to dark. But your job is to explain that this magic is actually science. You're going to create a pedigree, a Punnett square, and protein chain in order to provide evidence to support your hypothesis. So they're still going to be doing the same things as they were in the original exam structure. It's just going to be formatted a little bit differently. It's going to be a little more performative. It's going to be a little more deep in the questions and then what the kids have to prepare. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my graphs task and I'm going to copy it here into each section. Whoop. Wow, that's crazy. So this one is from my unit board template. You guys can, some people are going to type this out first. Some people are going to type this out second. It's just up to you. Let's make it small. There we go. Roles of the student, graduate student, you need to help explain science to normal people. They're going to be voting about policy. So the best way to do your GRASS task is to connect it to something that you think that your kids might actually encounter in the real world. So you can take, kind of like I did here, you can take any kind of short answer exam and you can reformat it into some sort of performance task. And I've got a lot of resources here on Canvas for you guys to structure these. And I'm always available if you guys need some help in taking what might be a paper or a typical short answer fill-in-the-blank multiple choice test and turning it into an IB assessment. So there are some really cool things out there that you can use. I mean, honestly, even like Googling performance tasks is a great way to get started. I know that in the math curriculum, there are tons of performance tasks that are formatted just like this, to where right now they're short answer, and you guys can turn them into a GRASS task. All right, so now I've got my grasps ready to rock and roll, okay? And now I want to choose a criterion. Okay? So I'm going to use my assessment criteria objectives, and I want to choose one of these. So if you remember, we have to assess each criteria A, B, C, and D 2 times every year. Okay, so in 9th grade, we need to assess each one 2 times, and in 10th grade, we need to assess each one 2 times. So in this one, I am going to choose criterion C, processing and evaluating, because I feel like this is a really good example of kids being able to collect or present collected and transformed data, interpret the data, evaluate the validity of the hypothesis and the method, and explain improvements. Okay, so what I'm going to do then, if I choose criterion C, I am then going to go and I'm going to put each of these guys into this box. So I'm going to choose criterion C. I'm going to say present collected, transform data, interpret data, and explain results. Reasoning, evaluate validity, hypothesis based on the outcome of the scientific investigation. I'm going to evaluate the validity of the method. And then let's see, I'm going to add another guy here. And more. Explain improvements or extensions to the. Okay. So then what I want to do is I want to show how in my graphs task the students will be doing each one of these things. Okay, so students will use data collected by Kettle well to present their hypothesis. Okay? So we want to be looking for these keywords that are the same. Interpret data and explain results using scientific reasoning. Students will create a presentation that interprets raw data from Kettlewell, translates it to common people. Okay, so translate and interpret are kind of the same. And explain and interprets and translates using scientific reasoning. Perfect. These guys are the same. Evaluate the validity of a hypothesis based on the outcome. Students will use a rubric to evaluate the validity of hypothesis, outcome seen in real-life moths. Okay. So we want to really focus on these command terms being the same. Okay. Outcome. Okay, evaluate the validity of the method, so students will also use a rubric to evaluate the method of data collection used by Kettlewell. Okay, so then we've got evaluate and evaluate again. And students will reflect and present one improvement and one extension of Kettlewell's experiments. Okay. One improvement and one extension. Okay, so then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to look at differentiation. So here in my guide, a little bit small. Okay, so how am I going to differentiate for neurodiverse students, for culturally and linguistically diverse students, and for gifted and talented students? So if you are having some struggles with this, we've got some people here in our building that are professionals at this. And so what would be really cool is if your content team, as you are planning your assessments, if you contact them to see how you can best support your neurodiverse, CLBE, and gifted and talented kiddos in your assessment. Okay, so we might do something like neurodiverse students will be provided a presentation template and word banks and sentence stems. Okay. CLBE students will also be provided presentation template, word banks, and sentence stems, complete with picture references for complex biological words. All right. Gifted and talented students will be given a more detailed, raw version of Kettlewell's data, and the analysis will be more rigorous. As scaffolds according to students' level. Okay, last part, relationship between the summative assessment tasks and your statement of inquiry. So something I like to do for this part is I like to actually copy and paste my statement of inquiry from the earlier parts of my unit planner. This assessment is a perfect case study in how form determines function. Okay, students will see the connection of mutation as then changing the colors of the moths. This all happened because of the change in the environment due to the Industrial Revolution. All right, and then you guys are all done. I'll see you next time.